Morning. I've been thinking recently here, and I used to believe that there were a myriad of vocations to which one might dedicate themselves, vocations which might be useful and essential to society, in fact, and which might be mutually exclusive with other efforts to which one might turn their attention. I now no longer really believe that. I, in fact, believe that political activism is the highest calling to which one can aspire. And in fact, we can't allow these people to follow their own paltry ideas of purpose in life. We can't allow neutrality either. Like, it's not a thing where diversity of interest means diversity of effort. We can't allow for people to not get involved in social change and political activism. No, we must force these people to get involved, whether they like it or not. We must force political change on people, whether they like it or not, right? That's the way we change hearts and minds. And that's not at all a back and forwards way of looking at things, at least in my opinion. And to be clear, like, at least in my opinion, intermediaries, they don't really have any real function for the most part. So I promise that from now on, this channel and the content I make here will be dedicated to that end, right? No more philosophical meanderings, no more cultural analysis, no more humor. We're going to be making fun of the right people now, right? Now, unfortunately, I only came to this enlightened realization after I kind of already had this video planned. So, but after this video, right? Systemic change, cultural upheaval, right? Systemic oppression, bringing that down with the patriarchy, down with this plutocratic oppression that we all live under. Eat the rich. Who's with me? Come on. What? Come on, people. Who's with me? All right. Let's get on with it. So for this video, we're going to be looking at some David Mitchell videos. I think I've been meaning to do something like this for a while, just never really got around to it. For the record, I think it's kind of unquantifiable as to how great an effect this guy's had on me. He's kind of like one of the few actors I would care to hear opinions from about various and sundry topics. But yeah, I hope I don't get hit, because I think we're going to be watching all of them. They're pretty short. But I think I see a lot of people reacting to them, so generally speaking, I imagine it's... I've seen at least some people react to them, so I imagine it's okay. In any case, 1 and 2, and away we go.
Ring.
I don't know who does this animation, actually, but it's kind of cool. You have to keep an eye out for, like, the backgrounds and whatnot.
Something I come up against a lot in my line of work.
606,684 feet. Is this supposed to be significant?
Is a reluctance to include references to things that not everyone will get. And a friend of mine who works in children's TV says it's even more of a problem there.
There was a thing recently, actually, where, what's his face? Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who I believe were actually roommates at one point, but they had gone on Joe Rogan. I think they were making some sort of movie together. And they were saying that Netflix basically kind of mandates, for the record, I've heard other stuff about that where it's not necessarily the case, or at least the executives said that it wasn't the case, but I guess I don't know what they would say if it was. It's kind of maybe a bit of an embarrassing thing to admit to, so I guess I don't know. But they were saying that they would basically force them to reiterate the plot multiple times within the movie, and basically that people are making movies for, like, secondary screen watching. They're assuming that people won't be focused on the movie itself.
Producers are terrified of mentioning anything that not all...
And for the record, these videos are made, like, way back when. I'm gonna guess these are probably at least 7-10 years old.
12-year-olds have already heard of. But most 12-year-olds haven't heard of much, and they're going to hear of a lot less if TV refuses to tell them stuff. The whole experience of being a child is about hearing words, ideas, phrases, and references you don't understand, and either...
Well, just in general, that does seem kind of to be like the prerequisite of growth as a whole, in that you kind of have to be willing to seem stupid, or at least admit that you don't know a thing in order to know things. Generally speaking, getting smarter involves surrounding you with people who make you feel a little bit stupid.
Working them out from context.
Just for the record, I'm kind of working off of probably around 3 hours of sleep right now, so this might not be the cream of the crop. If I sound stupid, that's the reason why. Not because I just am stupid.
Asking someone or looking them up. But the current orthodoxy apparently believes that children capriciously turn off as soon as you mention anything
Capricious.
they're unfamiliar with. I first came across Proust via Monty Python and Wagner via Bugs Bunny. And though that means I'm now always slightly surprised when the singer
Romanes et Dominus. Domus? That's probably supposed to be
portraying Brunhilde doesn't break off.
Oh, I get it. For the record, I never actually did look up this thing, but I think you're supposed to be looking up all this stuff in the background here.
Nor on a carrot, it certainly didn't stop me enjoying the cartoon at the time.
Feel free to do so. You can stop.
Although,
I
to
won't
be
mind.
fair, neither has it inspired me to find out much more about either. That's Proust and Wagner, not Bunny and Python, of which I have box sets. But the point is, audio...
For the record, I think I never really got into Bugs Bunny, really. Just not even a lot of cartoons in general. For the record, like, we didn't even really watch movies until we were a bit older. It was a church thing for a while. Oh! Pythagoras, nice. I assume that's what that's supposed to indicate. Pythag.
Audiences don't mind being introduced to new references, and they certainly don't blame whoever has made the reference, but tend to blame themselves. Whatever broadcasters think, ignorance is something a lot of us are still ashamed of, and I can't think of a much more constructive use for shame than that.
Based.
And aside from the shame, people like it. Our human...
Fair, like, I think self-loathing is an unhealthy sort of shame. But as far as, like, a source of self-betterment, I think shame can do some pretty good stuff.
The response to mystery is to be intrigued, not repulsed. That's why whodunits work, and why the oldest trick in storytelling is to introduce a closed container and withhold the knowledge of its contents. From Pandora to Lost. And incidentally, of those two references, it's only the first...
Wicked Witch. Just want to point that out.
Producers and editors would ever be nervous about including. We're all assumed to be au fait with pop cultural references, and to know that Lost has a
Au fait.
hatch, just as it used to be assumed we all knew Theseus had a minotaur. Well, not as a pet, but you know what I mean. And if you don't, you know where to look it up. In any case, children have never been better equipped to supply the deficiency. Today's 12-year-olds have...
For the record, yes, I did. Well, I would have known there was a king who had a minotaur. I don't know if I would have actually known his name. Theseus. Was that the one like Daedalus built the labyrinth? Not for sure.
always had the internet. They've grown
Admittedly, my Greek mythology is a bit rusty.
up with Google, Wikipedia, and smartphones as a fact of life. They take it for granted that anything they don't know can be instantly looked up. These are not people who
That's even more true these days.
are afraid of knowledge they don't have. Nor do I buy
Again, like, I think these things were made something like 10 years ago or ish, maybe 7, 8. I'm not for sure.
the argument that they'll be turned off by being
He did like 4 seasons of it. So
reminded they don't know.
for the record, if there were one thing that should be brought back, I feel like this would be a really good thing to bring back. Even do shorts of it or something.
Everything yet. All teenagers secretly know they're ignorant, and they know that's a problem. They might reject whatever their parents and teachers are trying to induct them into, but they still know they need to be inducted into something. Children's shows should have the confidence to use the "maybe you're not old enough for this yet" reverse psychology, which all parents of adolescents know is the most effective spur. The marketing of so much children's...
It's weird, like how that works, because I think it is, or can be true, that people just like default kind of are a little bit reluctant to be led into something. But if they are incentivized through a means that is less overtly manipulative, it's something that's more like a desire of their own, a desire of their own identity, or that is self-produced, self-instigated. I don't know. They're more likely to be willing to go along with it quite often. Very recusant race we are.
Or teen television, BBC Three, for example, is the opposite of this. A hey kids desperation to provide the youth audience with what a room of 35-year-olds thinks it might like, calculated to alienate even the uncoolest of children. They might as well have hired Cliff Richard to deny.
That's true. It's a little bit clingy. It's kind of a clingy vibe that goes along with certain ways people try to present certain information.
Deny us, for fear of offending us, the chance to be confronted with our own ignorance is to deny the power of human curiosity. A force that means we as a species are prepared to build a vast super collider below the French-Swiss border just to see what happens when...
E.T. I think that's E.T.
we switch it on. And also a force that means that if a 12-year-old first hears of that super collider on Saturday morning TV and doesn't
notice the rocket to the moon,
know what it is, he or she is more likely to Google it than switch off in disgust.
So says you.
Today,
For the record, we'll see how many of these or which of these we keep. I'm not for sure if I'll want to keep all of them, but yeah, we're gonna go through. I don't know how many I'll have in here or not. Anyways,
I thought I'd have a bit of a nationalist rant about how great a country is. But don't worry, my country of choice is Wales, so it's allowed. I'm a bit Welsh myself, as you...
So Wales, Ireland, Scotland, right? Those would be the ones that are distinct from the UK or Britain.
You can plainly tell from my sonorously lilting tone.
Oh, Britannia.
But I grew up in England, and my parents are Welsh, Scottish, and English, which is not as mathematically improbable as it seems at first glance. Accordingly, I think of myself as British. I support Wales in the rugby, England in the cricket, and sort of Wales in the football, but practically speaking England, and even more practically speaking, I don't care about football. So I consider I can have my pick of the British nations to root for, and I'm going with the Welsh because, by and large, they're the nicest. The Scots come across as chippy and often violent, and while, of course, I realise that...
That's true. I mean, Braveheart, that was from Scotland, right?
It's a baseless generalisation, and that I'm in little danger of being glassed by Lorraine Kelly, the other Scottish stereotypes,
You never know.
the ones about alcohol-related deaths and child obesity levels, they come with statistics attached.
So, look, so Scotland is kind of... Is all of Scotland Highlands or whatever? Just like higher up or something? Well, that doesn't make sense. Like, if it were the Scottish Highlands, it would be a distinct part of Scotland that was higher up. So I imagine part of it's just kind of whatever. Midlands, Lowlands, Hinterland. That's a fun one. But I don't know if that's in reference to... I don't think that would be in reference to Scotland. I think it refers to, like, the country behind the coastline or something. I'm not for sure. It maybe be like an iteration of, like, the Boondocks or the Sticks or... Oh, it's out in the Sticks or something like that. Not for sure, though. I'm going to have to look that one up.
English, meanwhile, are smug and inherently right-wing. Remember that without the Welsh and Scottish vote, England wouldn't have had a left-wing government until 1997, and we didn't even get one then. As for the Irish, I don't know why I don't warm to the Irish, given that the Irish are more or less genetically engineered to be warmed to. Maybe it's the terrorism. Yes, I think that's it. It may be unfair, but I can't help the fact that all the time I was growing up, during which I never went to Ireland, my main impression of it was as the place where all the scary news...
So that was the thing where there was like a whole terrorism... There was a whole terrorism thing in like Northern Ireland or whatever. That was kind of a thing, I think, even up until quite recently. Well, semi-recently in any case, like past the 2000s. It's an unfortunate reality with the IRA. Is that what it's called? Ireland Resistance Association. I don't know if that's even the correct. Yeah, something like that though. Strange sort of people. I think it was just a result. I assume it's just a result of like asserted governance on the part of Britain or something, where they. I don't know. I think there was a whole kerfuffle. Probably a lot of kerfuffles involving that.
News came from. Obviously, the news is much less scary now, and that's terrific, but perceptions like that take a while to change. Let's hope that in 20 years' time, the things most readily...
And there were actually full-on bombings, I think, from the IRA. It was rather, yeah... I don't know if it was prolific exactly, but it was rather violent in any case.
Associated with Afghanistan are its genial stand-ups and its chains of gastropubs. Whereas the Welsh are great. They prioritise education and the arts like no one else. They have no aristocracy. They prefer rugby to football, which is quite right. And
it's kind of a weird thing that, like, how does aristocracy really develop? It's kind of a strange idea. Generational wealth or some crap? Or is it kneecapping the populace? I'm not for sure. For the record, it feels like political or financial dynasties aren't really a thing that lasts that long, generally speaking, just statistically. But I guess, you know, disparate classes still seem to form. It's an interesting notion.
they're not always moaning on about the English like the others, and I include in that the English. Okay, maybe they do occasionally, on a bad day, do a little bit of moaning on.
Give me a second. All right, I'm back.
About the English. There's always going to be some bitterness from a smaller nation to the big fat one next door that keeps making up laws for it, but they're not really bothered. They pretty much...
That's kind of, generally speaking, the issue. If there's like especially if there's like a breakdown in communication or representation, it just becomes kind of an issue in general.
only agreed to devolution out of politeness to stop the Scottish one seeming like such a massive deal. In all honesty, I'd say Yorkshire is more bitter about England than Wales is, and they're English. In fact, that is my St David's Day suggestion. Let's invite Wales to join in with England and expel Yorkshire to make room. It'll be a straight swap, and what we lose on the puddings, we'll gain on the rarebit. Oh, and for the sake of fairness, I suppose I ought to add that I was once nearly...
Rarebit. What's that one? I thought I looked it up once, and it might have had to do with cheese or something. It might not be nearly as complex as you would think.
beaten up in Cardiff by a Scotsman.
Stupid AI. Sorry.
Hello. You may
That part's probably going to be cut out.
be thinking I look unusually smart in this picture. I hope so, because this is by nature of an
He looks gassy.
appeal, and that's my starting point. All I had to do, in order to give you the impression I look unusually smart, is take from my wardrobe the thing I always put on when I want to look unusually smart. There was no effort, no choice involved, I just followed some very simple instructions, and lo and behold, I look unusually smart. I find this tremendously reassuring. It's very unfair on women, actually. When they want to look unusually smart, they have to worry about dresses and jewellery and accessories and whether any other...
I mean, it's true. Like, it feels like maybe that's just a result of women competing a lot more when it comes to looks. I tend to think guys compete more in other regards. Like, it's just a different type of competition.
women will be wearing the same thing. Whereas we men know that hundreds of other men will be wearing exactly the same thing, and that's fine because we'll all vaguely look like we've made an effort. But what worries me is that there are men who are trying to take that away from us. Handsome men, cool men, men who want to
Dastardly fiends.
express themselves and who wear something...
For the record, I don't really like the notion of wearing suits in general, just because I like to be comfortable in the clothes I'm wearing. But I do see the kind of the point of what he's saying.
Anything other than this when they want to look unusually smart. Idiots. Fools. Black tie is a gift to men. It requires no thought, and it makes any of us look as good as it's possible for us to look. Why would you throw that away? Is it that you think that dress codes are just for the square majority, that your personality...
Yes.
Are too large and vibrant to be contained by them? I'm not going to do what the man says. I'm going to wear a sparkly open-necked shirt or a bootlace tie, or just a normal tie that's black, as if I'm going to a funeral. Presumably when...
I didn't even know like the conventions behind that. So you have black tie events, white tie... Is it white tie events? I'm trying to figure out like a... Okay, so is the white tie event kind of a tuxedo type thing? Not for sure.
Such people do go to funerals. They wear sandals and an I'm glad he's dead t-shirt. Well...
Sorry. Just says that part with such vehemence.
Whatever your twisted motivation, for heaven's sake, stop ruining it for the rest of us. If cool men continue to selfishly indulge their individuality, the convention...
I have to look this up. Okay, so white tie versus black tie. I'm thinking white tie would be some sort of kind of business or kind of dress casual type thing. Oh, come on. Hang on. White tie. White tie is the highest level of formal dress. So I was actually wrong. Actually, I want to look up something that's like an actual source here. Okay, in short, that was an AI answer before. So, in short, both of the most formal events, with the white tie being the top of the formal scale and black tie being next in line. What dress code is expected? White tie takes the crown as the highest level of formality and dress codes, reserved for state dinners and royal galas and prestigious affair. It demands meticulous attention to detail. On the other hand, black tie, although formal, is slightly more relaxed and suits weddings, elegant banquets, and upscale events. I don't know if, like, what exactly the code, whatever, the actual dress code is. It's probably some sort of arbitrary BS they just come up with to say, hey, this is what we need. Pretentious. That's what it is. It's pretentious.
Will disappear, and then we'll all have to think about what we wear forever after. We'll be in the same situation as the poor women. We'll have to exercise judgment. Men, in general, don't have to look as good as women. We should be clinging to that for all we're worth. Women have to...
That's true, generally speaking. I feel like just in general in a marriage, it's probably a good idea if the husband tries to look a little bit less attractive than the wife. I feel like it, generally speaking, maybe means more to women to look attractive. Again, I think they tend to compete more on that level, whereas men have other types of competition, more success, more, I don't know, physical ability or skills, something like that.
Fall back on makeup, Botox, surgery, the cosmetic and sartorial yoke under which they...
Sartorial. That's a good one. I have to look that up sometime. I want to remember it here, so I might as well just look it up while I'm typing it out. Sartorial. I'm gonna. Right. An adjective referring to tailors, tailoring, or tailored clothing, implying high quality, elegant dress. Nice.
Labor is terrifying, and it looms for us if we, or indeed even just a few of us, renounce the black tie. Particularly me. I dress terribly. I have no idea with clothes. If I was a policeman, I'd be afraid to join the CID because I wouldn't know what to wear. I need these instructions.
CID.
So I say to all you cool men, have a heart and put on a dicky bow. And to the uncool men, I say, don't let those handsome bastards ruin it for the rest of us. Because it's the handsome ones who are trying it on, make no mistake. The ones who actually wouldn't mind men being judged as harshly on their appearances as women, because they reckon they do quite well out of it. Well, never fear. The ugly man will always outnumber the
Yes.
attractive man. Let us strive to keep them in subjection. It shouldn't be hard. They're mostly thick.
Super based. Now, frankly, in all modesty, I guess I don't know where I would put myself on a scale of like looks. I tend to think I look more like interesting, attractive than like attractive. Like not like really attractive, but not bad looking, I guess. No, I'll just be self-conscious for the rest of this crap. For the rest of my life. Shouldn't have said anything. Forget about it.
There's a show on TV at the moment, the premise of which...
I never... I should remember this saying from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basley Frankweiler. I never really look past my eyes. That way I always feel beautiful. No, this is actually kind of a point of interest a little bit. There are women, I think, who look so pretty that they're almost boring. There's kind of like pretty interesting, and then there's like pretty perfect, like a cherubic type of whatever. Like I would maybe think of like Jessica Alba as being in that category of just someone who looks so like perfect that they're almost a little bit boring. I guess I don't know like how you would actually define that, but like there are women who look pretty but they're still interesting. Like they still kind of have something about them that you find intriguing or just is a little bit non-typical, I guess. And then there's people who are just like generic beautiful, which I mean, I guess they would probably still get someone, but it's less appealing, I think, to myself at least.
Is that 5 people each host a dinner party in turn, after which the other 4 are encouraged to be as blisteringly rude about it as possible. I humbly submit that this is not a good thing. It's certainly compelling, but only because, for now, it's still shocking to see people break the strong social convention that tells us that when we're invited into someone's home, we don't immediately and publicly slag off the food and decor.
This is kind of a weird notion. It's this type of thing where it feels like you can have a scenario in which it only takes one person to break the convention and everyone else will start to do it too. And in this case, obviously with regards to rudeness, it's not really a good thing. I'm not sure exactly what you would define as that, but like it's kind of the notion of like predatory individuals in society. Like society wouldn't work if everyone were a con man. If everyone were, I know, forget it. It's not even like a half-formed thought. That's a notion of a notion.
This show gets all its power from licensing people to break that rule and bitch at length on how vulgar they thought the napkins were. But the truth is that no napkins, not even when embroidered with monograms, presented in napkin rings and referred to as serviettes.
And I feel like this whole scenario he's talking about would be more of a thing in England because they're kind of more into that formality, especially in high society or stuff like that. But I don't know if it would really be a thing in America so much.
Can ever be as vulgar as saying so. This program glorifies people who do say so as loudly and obnoxiously as possible, and the problem is that this taboo is a finite resource. Every time you break it, you weaken it. It's like smashing a teapot and gluing it back together again and again and again. Sooner...
Oh, that's the whole thing too. There's a whole like genre of human behaviors that are they're avaricious. That'd probably be the right word. Like you can't get the same result from the same thing again and again and again. You have to keep upping the ante in order to get the same result. It's kind of a unsustainable model, if you will.
Sooner or later, it's going to be more glue than pot, and then there will be no more tea for anyone. In this metaphor, T stands for grace and courtesy, as well it might. Shows like this one recklessly gobble up our capacity to be shocked by people being rude to each other for short-term gain. And like the rainforest, once it's been destroyed to make grazing land for cattle, it's gone forever. In this metaphor, cows stand for rudeness and selfishness. This is less fair on cows than the previous one was on tea. In other shows, of course...
I assume this is a lady that British people would know. Here's a question I have. What do British people think of Piers Morgan? Because over here he's kind of seen as a little bit of a, free thinker, rabble-rouser, a little bit, kind of-ish. Maybe even that's somewhat true. But I would get the idea he's not exactly well-liked in England. I remember watching an episode of Top Gear where they were talking about, it's kind of like strangling Piers Morgan or something. So it'd be interesting to hear what British people actually think about Piers Morgan. Might be kind of one of those things where he might have, I guess, I don't know if he changed his content at some point in the past, or if he changed his content when he came over here, or even more recently. I think for a while he was very much into the whole COVID thing, kind of changed his tune on that a little bit, on gun control maybe as well.
The teapot stroke rainforest of not being gratuitously nasty to strangers has been systematically sledgehammered stroke bulldozed for years. The weakest link, for instance. Don't ask me why I'm happy to name the weakest link when I was so coy about naming Come Dine With Me, by the way, although on the other hand, I now have done. Anyway, the weakest link is the epitome of...
Again, I think British people would know this stuff, but I don't really know it. I've watched some British stuff. Yeah.
Rudeness for rudeness' sake.
Weirdly, well, I say weirdly. I really like the theme from Thin Blue Line. So. Pretty cool. Pretty cool tune. I need to listen to it again because I'm missing the end of the first line, I think. Because the second one go like... I'm missing the in-between part there. I need to listen to it again one of these days.
Members of the public who have been firmly briefed to on no account stand up for themselves being synthetically bullied by a pantomime villain who, to add insult to, well, insult, isn't even very good at
pantomime. I have to use that one.
Being rude.
Okay, so would that be like a cartoonish type of thing? Like the equivalent of saying, a cartoonishly evil person or villain or whatever? Pantomime villain.
It's her raison d'employment, and she can't really do it.
No, I have to look this up. All right, pantomime. I would have thought it was like some archaic theatrical thing. British musical comedy or stage production for families that combines topical humor, cross-dressing, and a story based on a well-known fairy tale. Well, there's a root word mime there too, so I'm not sure exactly what that would entail. Interesting, though.
Certainly not without her scriptwriters. I'd be happy to volunteer as freelance scriptwriter for the hapless contestants, starting off with the all-purpose rejoinder, "Oh, pipe down, you plastic-faced witch."
I think in America they would have used a different word there, but I'm glad he...
And there's Dragon's Den.
Now, for the record, it does feel like... I guess I don't know. Maybe people know exactly what they're signing up for when they go on shows like this. That's possible. Like they're told, like, hey, this is what it is, and this is how you're supposed to react. I feel like some of this is a lot less spontaneous, and maybe we give it credit for, but it's kind of a little bit annoying, I guess, to see some self-important, pompous ass kind of going after a person who can't really defend themselves, I guess. There's just something kind of visceral about that.
A veritable temple of rudeness, which also tells a barefaced lie about how business is done. The people who do that job for real are not rude to prospective business partners because there's no percentage for anyone in there being so. They don't sanctimoniously tick people off, nor do they spend 10 minutes thinking up a weak pun that combines their wish not to invest with the field of the invention in question. a new
Oh, how dare you.
type of cheese, I'd have to be crackers to invest. As if they're auditioning for the Beano. They have civilized meetings in which they give polite, if straightforward, responses to submissions. And then everyone gets on with their life. Whereas...
It does feel like it's kind of like the whole notion of screw you for trying. I don't know if I ever really want to be that guy. Like, even if sometimes people are malevolent, so maybe sometimes it is appropriate to be like, oh, yeah, you suck, you shouldn't have tried that. But, like, generally speaking, I think it's a good thing for people to want to try new things, to want to try something different, providing it's not some sort of aberrant, impractical, grotesque type of thing that's completely at odds with nature itself. But, generally speaking, yeah, it's good for people to indulge their creativity a little bit. So I guess I don't really want to be the type of guy who's like, yeah, you suck, you shouldn't have tried anything here.
Dragon's Den not only misrepresents rudeness as straightforwardness, but also implies that this is how successful business people behave, and something anyone who has aspirations in that direction should emulate. The show is not fundamentally about people
You're fired.
trying to sell inventions to established entrepreneurs. It's about...
For the record, that's an impression of someone who was trying to do that's an impression of someone who's trying to do an impression of Donald Trump from, The Apprentice. I think that's The Apprentice, right? That was the one Trump was on. Never watched it, actually.
Established entrepreneurs trying to sell their fake indignation and weak put-downs as wit. And I should like to respond to their pitch with a graceful and courteous piss off. Today, I was all set to get myself into a lather.
Is that N spelled wrong or done wrongly? That feels weird. Sorry, it's just... That's...
For your entertainment about people who use myself and yourself when they mean me and you, because they incorrectly assume that using a word with an extra syllable makes you sound like Jeeves.
That one I do know. Jeeves and Wooster, P.G. Wodehouse, pretty dang cool. It's a good series. I guess I did read maybe a little bit of the books themselves, but I mostly watched the TV series. Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie, really good show.
But I found my heart wasn't in it, because at least these people care. They know there's a mistake to be made, that they're not confident they have the language to address a railway carriage full of people, and so they grab at the nearest tools to hand. The shame of it is that in fact they do have the right language, that the correct way to express the thought, make sure you take your things with you when you go, is not, please ensure you have all your personal items about your person upon debarkation.
So says you.
It's, make sure you take your things with you when you go. Or maybe, and this will sound crazy, but maybe, having got ourselves to the station and onto the train without any help from an outside agency, we might even be capable of picking up our bags without any sort of helpful reminder at all. But that's a rant for another day. My point is that at least the myself, yourself guys are giving it a go. And I've far more time for them than for those people who think that how you spell or punctuate or pronounce doesn't matter. Not that being able to...
That's the problem. It feels like I don't know if I entirely agree with this position on this, because it feels like language is very much kind of a moving target. It is what people use it to mean, generally speaking, and the notion of trying to lock it down. And it's good if we kind of can get together on what words mean, essentially. Like that, if we as a population agree that this is how to use such and such a word, and then when people try to subvert that, like, it doesn't really change anything in the long term. It's just annoying in the short term that they're trying to subvert language, or sometimes it's perhaps even malevolent in the short term, where they're trying to, crowbar themselves into certain scenarios. Witness the transgender movement of recent years here. But yeah, generally speaking, very much a moving target. So as to, like, maybe doesn't do to be like too persnickety about it.
Spell makes you a better person. You're free to write however you like, and goodness knows you don't need me to tell you that. What it might be worth knowing, though, is that when you send emails full of
generally speaking, I just didn't, like, as long as I can understand what the other person's saying and they can understand me, I'm cool with it.
Spellings and errant apostrophes, people judge
Ish.
you.
Sometimes some of it annoys me a little bit, but yeah.
And by people, I mean me. But I don't just mean me. I mean me and almost everyone I know. Now, let me repeat. You may not be worried about being judged by the likes of me, and that's fine. Why should you be? But it will happen. We will judge you. We won't tell you we're judging you, but we will. Is this terrible, snobbish discrimination against people who just don't happen to be very good spellers? Well,
Yes.
no, I don't think so. If you're a bad speller, surely everything you send should be spelt perfectly, because without the arrogant assumption you don't need to look things up, you'd look everything up. I still check how many L's there are in marvelous and panelist most weeks.
If you don't get the joke there, I believe he actually is a panelist. So I think he's maybe the big one would be "Would You Lie to Me?" or something like that. He was a regular on there, at least for a while. I think Jimmy Carr was the one who had hosted that. Yeah.
No, it's the good spellers who are more...
Who was the other guy? They would have like team captains, and I think David Mitchell would have been one of the captains. There was another dude there as well that I think he's friends with or whatever.
Likely to be lured into errors by the squiggly red gods of Microsoft Word. Bad spellers with an online dictionary or even an on-desk dictionary should be fine. I'm trying here to stay off the eats, shoots and leaves bandwagon. Lynn Truss has made punctuation a fashion and a fetish, something for a certain type of Daily Telegraph reader to feel smug and clannish about, and God knows that's the last thing they need. That's like making indicating before turning or lane discipline fashionable. It's better than fashionable, it's useful.
Yeah. It feels like the type of people who would worry a whole bunch about spelling. Or like the type of people who would apply to the IRS or something. For the record, I appreciate the fact that the IRS exists, but doesn't make us like it anymore. I suppose. But for the record, I think one of my... I keep saying for the record too much. I need to work on that one. But a friend of ours had been audited recently. They run kind of an interstate business, and they had effectively learned that all of their sales from another state were going to have to be kind of retroactively taxed or something. They were going to have to figure out something new to do with it. And the guy who came to check it out was like the picture of what you would think an IRS man is. Just like this very regimented. He'd gotten out his lunchbox, and it's just like picture perfect, everything in its place or whatever. Like the type of person that would be very, very detail oriented, I guess. Maybe that would be the nice way of putting it. It feels like that was the type of individual that would, just like the picture perfect version of an IRS man.
But maybe
I just feel like you would think of them as being a certain type of person. Like who would actually go for that? I suppose there would be people who would, out of necessity, because that's the only job they could get, would go for it. But like, who would actually want to be an IRS auditor? That'd be kind of an interesting psychological profile to study.
I'm just envious, because I knew the rules she knows too, but I didn't spot that there was money in it. I'm certainly happy to admit that I have a huge vested interest in upholding these rules, because I did take the trouble to learn them, and having put that effort in, I am abundantly incentivized to make sure everyone else follows suit. The very last thing I want is for us to return to a society where some other arbitrary code is taken as the measure of a man, like how many press-ups you can do or what's the largest mammal you can kill. Because when that day dawns, I, and everyone else who judges you when you say would of instead of would have, am...
Actually, the biggest animal I've ever killed, I think, was a rabbit. Sorry, let me rewind here.
Press-ups you can do, or what's the largest mammal
I can do some press-ups.
you can kill. Because when that day dawns, I, and everyone else who judges you when you say would of instead of would have, am shafted. In my job, or rather my loose collection of jobs with the vague connecting themes of making stuff up and pretending, I do a fair amount of coming up with ideas for things I'd like to do and taking them to people to see if they'll let me do them. Now, I'm not intending to moan today.
Yeah. Sounds like kind of a cool job.
about the fact that sometimes they say no. That's okay, it's their money. And anyway, it's polite to pretend that I admit some of my ideas probably aren't very good or wouldn't work, even if I'm secretly sure they all are and would. No, what I...
It's kind of a weird thing. Like, it feels like people these days tend to think they associate like subjective with a thing that's not really meaningful, or a scenario in which there is no correct way to view a thing. But it feels like in scenarios where a thing just is subjective, then there still is a correct way to view it, and that's your way. Like, if I say pizza is the best food in the world, that's obviously a subjective thing, but it's unique to myself. So how am I supposed to view it? Am I supposed to go from someone else's perception of what the best food in the world is? No, I'm me, not them. So even in that scenario, even though it's a subjective truth, not universally applicable, there still is this right and wrong way of viewing things. I'm me, not someone else, therefore my subjective perspective is the one that matters in the scenario. Consequently, yes, pizza being the correct food in the world, the best food in the world is, correct. For the record, I don't know if I actually think that pizza is the best food in the world, but I digress.
What I'm complaining about is precisely that I'm not told no. What tends to happen instead is a tortuous, touchy-feely discussion about whether or not we all feel that's the best way forward. And once we've established that...
That's true. It does feel like, and for the record, this is not something, maybe it's something I fall into sometimes as well, but people kind of get into their heads too much, I think, about, like, what other people think about them. Where there's just kind of this, like, okay, what do they think about me, and what do they think about what I think about them? Like, it feels like it's just kind of this really bizarre abstraction. It feels like once you go past, like, okay, what are they saying to me, and you start to try and abstract what they're thinking, and they're trying to abstract what you're thinking, things can get very, like, weird. Put it that way. Like, it's sometimes trying to contrive an idea of what a person's thinking is useful, but it's also just in the most cases, unless there's some genuine connection there and you actually know them really well, it's just kind of an internal model of what you perceive them as, or something like that. It's not like a meaningful, like, this is actually what's going on upstairs. So again, like, maybe it's just better speaking, at least if you don't know the person really well, to just go off of what they say and not worry too much about what they're thinking. For the record, even sometimes with people you know, I think that's perhaps good. Anyways, now that's a fair and balanced perspective. Yeah, just go mostly off of what people say. Sometimes worry about what they think, but mostly what they say. And don't worry about the rest.
We all don't, further painful inching towards a pretend consensus that the thing that the person in the room with the most power thinks we should do is actually what we all think we should do. And I don't think that's unique to my job. I think it happens anywhere where one person is basically in charge of others, but it's socially convenient to both parties to act as if that's not the case.
Yeah. Again, this was made a long time ago, but I feel like this is kind of the picture of Hollywood these days, where they're desperately trying not to offend people so much so that they're can't really do anything effectively. It's just this type of, I guess, I don't know.
And as I say, it isn't me not getting my own way I object.
That might be a fairly labored metaphor, but it does feel like there's kind of like a correlation between what he's talking about here and the present state of a lot of maybe industries in entertainment.
It's the social pressure to pretend that me not getting my own way is, now I stop to think about it, what I really wanted all along. Why are we expected to do that? Why are we so uncomfortable with saying, fine, I'll do it your way, but I don't agree? That seems like something we could say cheerfully and civilly enough without anyone having to run off to the loo for a little cry. We don't usually hate the boss for making us do it his way. If I was in charge, we think, I wouldn't listen to you either. By now, you may be thinking, oh, for heaven's sake.
To be fair, like, I think there can be something to, like, soften the blow a little bit. But, I know I've thought of this before, but it feels like ideas on some level are kind of, you become attached to them to some extent. So the notion of just, like, it's kind of like the notion of amputating someone's limb without Novocaine or whatever they use these days. Novocaine, I'm pretty sure, went out of style a long time ago, but the notion of, like, yeah, it feels like it is. There's an art to maybe like persuasion rather than just a blunt type of no, we're not doing that. I'm not saying it could never work, especially in maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said, perhaps, on both sides. Sometimes being honest is the right thing, and sometimes being a little bit tactful is the right thing.
Mitchell, it's just a harmless social grace. I thought you were in favour of those. And so I am. But this one comes at a price. What they're robbing
So it does come to that.
us of here is the right to use those three beautiful little words that mean so much. Told you so. If after one of these, yes, you're probably right, let's do that, false compromises, it all goes tits up in exactly the way you thought it would, well, you agreed to it, remember? With false collective agreement comes false collective responsibility. You're not only doing it wrong, it's also...
It's actually kind of a good point. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay. Yeah. Scenarios like that. I feel like I would sometimes take the notion of just, yeah, don't try to get me to agree with you. We'll do it your way, but fine. Just don't expect...
also partly your fault. And I don't want that. I want to be able to say, I did it your way because you made me, and now here's another fine mess you've
There's kind of an unhallowed thrill in that.
gotten me into, Stanley. The soldiers who went over the top at the Somme are rightly regarded as heroes, because even though their efforts were doomed, we all understand it wasn't their idea. No one was saying, why on earth did you go over the top? Did you not see the barbed wire and guns? Were the previous 46 doomed sorties not a hint? Idiots. No, they say the Tommies were lions led by donkeys. And whether or not that's true, it's a lot easier to say under the actual circumstances than if the donkeys had got the lions round a conference table, given them all a cup of nasty coffee from the machine, and got them to agree that, yes, running headlong across a minefield into machine gun fire is, on balance, pretty much what we all, from Field Marshal Haig to Wilfred Owen to Private Baldrick, think is the best way forward.
All right, that was good. Good videos. You can check out his channel. I think it's called David Mitchell's Soapbox. He actually has another one where it's like David Mitchell's Bunker or something. I think that's his anyways. There might be other people who host that as well, though. I'm not for sure. You can go check those out too. Alright. Thank you for watching. And good day.